Alright, so this tutorial is a subscriber request, and we're going to be looking at video overlays. And what I mean by that is simply a static image that will go on top of video content to help kind of create a little higher quality look and feel to a video that someone might put up, specifically a gaming video. And so a lot of these gaming videos have, especially for live stream events and live recordings, they'll have the video game content as the main focus in the background, and then they'll have maybe a webcam on top, maybe some social network links or sponsor logos, something like that. So the overlay part is the little design elements that we use to tie the content together. So the original file for this one, for example, we had the border that went around the webcam for Tom, and we had a design element with the Grand Theft Auto 5 logo and a bit of the design treatment behind it to kind of help tie this whole webcam into the video content. Also, we had a remember to subscribe button down at the bottom left hand side, and we had a modular piece that was for a promotional, you could win a copy in the upper left, and we're able to toggle that on and off depending on if the promotion was running or not. So there's a lot of little elements that we had in this overlay and kind of the thought process behind putting these elements in. So the example I'm going to be using today is a game that my son and I recorded. We were playing a game called Foul Play, and we had our little webcam set up in the bottom right hand side, and we had fun playing this game. So we recorded the content, and what we're going to do is create an overlay for this video and kind of tie the whole thing in together a little bit. So let's just jump right in. I'll kind of show you what to look for and kind of how to think about one of these overlays. So the first thing that we want to look at is basically the size. So the overall size of the overlay is probably you're going to want to keep it around 1280 by 720. So your image size will be 1280 pixels wide by 720 pixels tall. Your resolution will be 72 ppi or dpi, and basically this is a HD format screen size. So we're going to be using that screen size to create our overlay, and the thought behind it is that as a viewer you don't know what size their screen is going to be when they're watching the video. So for instance, if we go back to this example with Tom, now this player is the largest player available on YouTube's video page, other than clicking to go to full screen mode. You gotta keep in mind that some people were going to be looking at this at half the size, depending on where the player is embedded and what page it's on and what device they're using. So just keep that in mind, that the size of the video player could go scale upwards or downwards depending on what the user is viewing it on. Also keep in mind that most streaming devices have a hard time streaming anything higher than 720 HD. It's a big bandwidth kind of hog, and a lot of people are going to be looking at more of a 360 or 480 ratio or kind of compression on that video. So keep in mind that video players are going to be a little more grainy and a little more distorted, and keep that in mind when creating text and secondary elements that you need in the overlay. So back to our example, we're going to take a screenshot that we got here of my son and I playing this game. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V and paste it onto my canvas, and I want to line this up, line the window up just so I can get right within that 1280 by 720 area, so I keep a precise image to work off of. So when you're creating an overlay, you want to keep an eye on how the game works, or any video, the video content in general, what parts you don't want to cover. Depending on what you want in the overlay, though, you might have to sacrifice some design elements or UI elements depending on what you need to have in there. So for Foul Play, I've noticed that a lot of the action content is in the upper left hand and upper right hand corners in this case, and the top center. Also, looking at other screenshots, we can see that there is some information that happens in the lower left and some happens in the lower right. But for the most part, for the way this game plays in particular, we found that the lower right was kind of the best area to put the webcam, and we are going to have to sacrifice covering some elements up of the game that we that would be nice to see, but at the same time, the webcam just gives it a little more action in this case. So keep in mind placement of items when you're designing these things, and what elements you want in there. So we have our canvas. The next thing we want to do is let's create a little border to go around the webcam picture and kind of tie everything in. We're going to add the Foul Play logo down at the bottom just as a design element, and maybe some additional pieces. So when adding these things, one thing that you want to do is keep the design consistent with the game, and it just helps keep it more cohesive and keeps the design more consistent with the look and feel of the game. So I've got a screenshot of the intro screen to Foul Play, and we're going to use some elements off this to create our overlay. So one thing I noticed off the bat is it's got this nice border, like an old 1920s, 1930s opera house or theater, and we're gonna take an element, a selection of this border, and we're gonna create our webcam border for it. So I'm just gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna use my rectangular selection tool, and I'm just going to kind of grab an area of this border, and we're going to use it as our webcam border. So let's just kind of grab maybe that much, and that's about 20 pixels wide. We need to keep in mind that we don't want to be covering up a lot of content, so keep your elements as I guess as large as they really have to be. And then just kind of play around with that. So I've got this layer pasted in, and I'm going to create a border using this design element for our webcam. So I'm going to press Ctrl J, and that's going to create a duplicate layer, and we're going to go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees. And it's not quite long enough, so I'm going to press Ctrl J again, and I'm just going to simply hold Shift and drag it to the right and get a little more width out of this piece. So I'm going to press Ctrl E to merge those layers together, and we want to look at placement here. We want to kind of make sure that we don't cover the webcam too much, but at the same time we don't cover up the background too much. So I'm looking at the webcam, and I can see that I can still get rid of some of this area to the right of my son that's just wall and part of the chair. So keep in mind those elements, kind of like so. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a selection and kind of carve these corners up to be kind of a frame. So I'm going to zoom in and use my my polygon selection tool. And when holding Shift, I can create a 45-degree selection. And if you let off Shift, see how it releases. And if you hold Shift, it goes to 90, 45, or 90. So I can get a nice 45-degree angle here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And now the excess of this layer below, I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to get rid of the excess on top here. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. So I've created kind of a corner here. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to merge these together. Hold Shift, select both layers, Control E to merge them. I'm using Photoshop CS6, of course, with on a Windows 7 box. Press Control J, and I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 180 degrees. So we're going to get this other corner. So let's go ahead and bump in where we want that to kind of rest. I'm just using the arrow cursors, and the bottom I'm not too concerned about. The right hand side, my younger son makes a couple guest appearances, so I don't want to cover up where he might show up. But at the same time, I want to make sure that the margin surrounding the window is nice and even against the outside of the frame. So I'm going to put it right about there. And it looks like because I found that placement, I'm actually going to need a little more additional height here. So I'm going to make a selection and layer via copy from if you right click on it. I'm just going to bump that up. Control E, and let's look at our bottom left corner. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the excess using the rectangular marquee tool. Kind of like so, and I'm liking how this is looking. It's tied into the game. And with our polygon tool, I'm going to create another 45-degree selection, and I'm going to get these corners looking consistent. All right, it's looking nice. Now let's do this bottom corner. I need the rectangular polygon selection tool thing. Get rid of that. And how are we looking? All right, it looks like I need a little more height in this bottom piece to get those corners lined up. Control E. All right. So let's toggle off our video content and see what that's looking like. Looks like a nice border. All right, so I'm gonna merge those layers together. Shift click both of them, Control E. And let's give this an outer glow that we're gonna kind of mimic a shadow with it. So layer effects, outer glow. Change the blend mode to normal. Change the color to black. Okay. Let's turn the size up to about 9, and let's turn the opacity down. I kind of like having the just enough to give it some depth, but not get too crazy. All right. Let's also give this a gradient overlay. All right. So for our colors, let's choose kind of a yellow, and what we're going to do is kind of make this a little more gold looking. So I'm going to pick kind of a yellow. And I'm going to copy that hex value, and I'm going to use it so it's the same color fading into itself, but I'm going to turn the opacity down to 0 on the left end. All right, and that's looking good. Okay, I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to change the direction because I want the upper left hand side to be probably have a little more brightness, and I'm going to change the blend mode to overlay. And there we go, that gave it a much more gold appearance. All right, I think that's looking kind of cool so far. So I'm gonna hit OK. Now let's see what other elements we can take from the intro screen here and kind of create something nice. So I like how this curtain is. For time's sake, I'm not gonna really do a clean selection, but I'm gonna take the pen tool and I'm gonna set this to path. And I like this upper curtain. So let's kind of take a selection. Or we're going to create a selection around this upper kind of curtain. Kind of like so. And I'm just using the pen tool to create this selection. All right. And I have a path made, so I'm going to right click within it and click Make Selection. Feather radius 0, anti-alias is checked on. New selection, hit OK. Control C, go back to our original document, and Control V. And let's place this below the layer below our frame, and let's just kind of press Control T and see if we can kind of twist it into a nice placement down here. I kind of like it like that. Now we're going to have a corner here that we have to do something about. So let's see, for time's sake, how about let's just toggle off the view of the frame real quick and let's use our stamp tool. So I'm going to click the stamp tool and make sure your brush is the hardness is 0, size can be whatever you're comfortable with, and let's just kind of paint in some more pixels to match the curtain a little bit, and just kind of mimic in. Doesn't have to be precise, but we're just going to kind of fill in this corner a little bit. All right, turn our frame back on. Now of course we have some parts that we're going to need to mask out. Let me kind of move this down a little bit so We're on the edge of our video content, and I'm going to actually give this an outer glow as well, if I can find it. And we're going to change this to normal, the blend mode, or the blend mode normal, the color black. Turn the size up a little bit, and that looks kind of cool. All right. Save this out. I'll zoom out, see how we're looking. All right, so we need to create a layer mask to not cover up our webcam. So let's go ahead and use our rectangular marquee tool, and we just want to select within the inside of the frame here. All right, so we got the inside selected. Go to select inverse, or Shift Control I on a PC. Now let's click the layer mask icon, and there we go. We just got rid of the curtain that was showing through. Let's double check, and we still have a shadow that we're gonna have to kind of deal with here. So actually I'm gonna delete this layer mask for now, and we're going to take this layer and go to filter, convert for smart filters, and let's go ahead and do this to the frame layer. So the frame layer, let's go to filter, convert to smart filters. All right, and what that did was it kind of rasterized that layer a little bit, and let's make that selection again with the rectangular marquee tool. Be precise, select inverse, give it a layer mask, hold Control, select that layer mask. Now go to your curtain layer and press the layer mask button again. And now if we toggle on our content, we should have that knocked out pretty good. There we go. Now we've got a bunch of parts that are giving more detail and help keeping this video content more consistent. So another thing I want to do is take the logo that I found, and I'm going to Control A, Control C. I'm going to paste it above all my layers in this document. I got to shrink it down a bit, so I'm going to press Control T and hold Shift and drag in the corner. All right, now let's get rid of the black background. So a trick you can use here is called blend modes, or it's the blend if option within a layer. So if you double click the layer, you see at the bottom you have blend if gray. So this layer we want to blend the black. So if we hold Alt, we can split the little toggle here, and we can just kind of get enough of the black out to enough of the black background out to give us just a logo. So I've done too much, so I lost the bottom of the rows. So let's there we go. Hit OK. Now create a new layer above. Shift click and select both those layers. Control E to merge them. And let's size this down. So Control T. And I'm going to kind of fit it down here in the corner above our curtain next to our webcam, just as a design element detail. And let's give this an outer glow as well, so we can see the logo better. So outer glow, and let's change the blend mode to normal. Let's change the color to a black, and let's turn up the size a bit, and let's turn up the spread a little bit. And that's kind of cool. Now there's other things you could do here, like let's go ahead and make a layer below it, and we're just gonna give a quick little blast of paint behind it. So I'm gonna select my paintbrush, basic round circle, the hardness to 0, size, let's see, that's about good. And let's just kind of put some paint behind it so that logo pops a little bit better. I'm gonna play with the opacity just a hair. So let's find a nice little placement for that, maybe into the frame a little bit. Another thing we might want to grab, let's see if we can find another element that we can grab. I like these corners. I wonder if we can do something with these though. There's not really enough. We could recreate some. Man, I want to use that, but it's a little dark. let's see if we can take a selection and just kind of use a piece of this. So I'm going to take my pen tool again, and this is just kind of bonus if we can get one of these little flourishes to kind of come into the piece. But it is, you know, it's all detail. Every little detail you can pull in just helps kind of pull up the overall image a little bit. So let's kind of make a selection. And when you're making a path with a pen, if you click Alt and click on your point, what happens is you kind of break the handle to where you can use the tool and go a different direction with the pen tool. So what I'm doing is I'm just making selections, and then when I don't want there to be a bend, I'm holding Alt and clicking on the point there. All right, so let's right click, make selection, say OK, Control C, and let's paste this above our frame. Let's go to image adjustments. Let's try levels and see if we can brighten this up. We don't want to desaturate it, but we still want some of the image adjustments. Let's try hue and saturation. Let's get some of the color to pop a little bit better in there. Yeah, that works all right. All right, so let's just kind of move this around and see if we can find a spot for it. Kind of shrink it down a little bit. And let's go ahead and Control J, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Maybe one on the bottom right hand corner would look good. So the size is too big though, so let's go ahead and scale it down a little bit more so it fits within the window. And just for tutorial's sake, I think we're just going to kind of leave it as is. I'm going to go ahead and scale this one down too a little bit so the size is a little more consistent. And I think that looks kind of cool. Yeah, well, I mean, it could definitely use a little more love, but it'll work for now. That's the fun part about design. All right. All right, so basically we have an overlay, and what we need to do is save this out to pull into our video editor, which I'll render out separately. But that was basically a step-by-step on how to do it. So let's go ahead, and we need to knock out the background. So let's just hide the layers that are the background. So we have just our overlay. And if you the shortcut on a PC is to hold Control, Shift, Alt, and S. And what happens is you bring up the Save for Web dialog box. If you cancel out of there, you can also go to File, Save for Web, right? Now we want to keep this as a PNG 24, so we have full color, and we can knock out the transparency. So if you have transparency clicked or checked on, you should be able to do this just fine. So let's go ahead and save this, and I'm going to save it as overlay. And yes, I'm replacing an earlier one. So there we go. We have our video overlay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to render this out, and then we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so we just rendered out our video, and let's look at the original video where we just had the webcam on top of the video content. We're just playing in Windows Media Player and no overlay. And let's pause this, and let's go ahead and drag in the new one, and there we go. Looks pretty sharp, I must say. Definitely an improvement, and helps bring the webcam and video content kind of together as one cohesive, consistent design. So I hope you guys got some use out of this tutorial, and just kind of show you a way of thinking when getting into things like static overlays and applying visuals to video content such as this. So alright, I will come back with more, and I'll let this play out with some footage. Later.
These are good. Like, he has a cannon.
I hate cannons. They're evil.
Oh, I think I just got shot in the face.
I
With a cannon. With a cannon.
Yep.